Welcome everyone back to my channel, The Grim Reader. I'm here with what we're all doing this time of year in all different ways because we're all different, and I think that's fine, is presenting you our best reads of 2024. And for some reason, I am drawn to the idea of just giving you a 30 through 1 in terms of, and I rank them in a completely subjective way. I read 30 books, and a lot of them I did listen and read, kind of the mixture of it all. But let's get into the countdown. So I have my stats here, as it were, just scribbling around as to how to get to the 30 through 1. And quite a few of these I don't have anymore, or some of them I don't have. So let's start with the worst book of the year. And it wasn't terrible. It was just, in terms of the other ones, it was the worst. It was number 30 of 30. And I'll put a picture here. It's the book that someone sent me, the author sent me. And he sent it to a bunch of slightly older lady booktubers, I think. I don't know if he sent it to younger booktubers as well, but slightly older lady booktubers were all inundated by Reuben Fenton's novel called Goyhood, which was a sort of rompy road movie story about these two brothers who just find out that they're Jewish, and it's all about their having to come to terms with it, as I recall. It was sort of slapsticky, and it was very movie-like. It read like a movie, like a, not great, like a very sort of almost Hollywood-esque movie script to me. And it was, I don't know why I'm giving it the lowest score. I mean, I do know why. It was not substantial as a work of fiction, I don't think. It wasn't terrible, but it was very sort of unsubstantial. And that's the sort of word I'm going with. So that's number 30 for me. It wasn't terrible, and it was quite interesting, and I'm sure a lot of people will like it more than I do. But you all know that I have strange tastes. So that's why it's number 30 for that one. Now, let me see here. I should have made a better list of where we are here. It's kind of fun to look around, though, to sort of gather them, as long as I do it right. So number 29 is another very popular book. I apologize. I don't go with what people like so much, and I don't have a copy because I read it online. And it's Ann Patchett's, my first ever Ann Patchett, which was The Dutch House, about the young woman with the long black hair. To be honest, I mean, I do kind of remember reading it. The plot, it was about a mean stepmother type thing, and then this house that they all kind of are connected to. But it has receded a little bit from memory. And I remember sort of almost ditching it a couple times, but then kind of persevering, which was a bit of a theme this year. Sometimes it was worth it, sometimes it wasn't. And yet here again, I think I gave these both 3 stars. To me, that's low. And I was like, yeah, that's fine. It was fine. And I don't know, do I need to read more Ann Patchett? I mean, I know she's got that wonderful bookstore in Tennessee and Nashville, I think. That's her, right? I think that's her. But I don't know. I've heard good things about Bel Canto. I'm not sure. So that's the second to the last book. The third one is another one that I've already regifted back to the half-price bookstores. I bought it because it was a pretty book. And it's the fantasy novel A Sorceress Comes to Call by T. Kingfisher. And I like the beginning with the weird toxic magical mother and the put upon victimized daughter, and I thought there was potential there, but where did that potential go? It got confused as to who the main character is supposed to be, and it was supposed to be an older person later on. And actually it was sort of interesting. I mean, you know, there's stuff at the end with a horse ghost type thing that was kind of interesting. But it sort of had potential, but it didn't really follow through, and the writing was so. It's kind of, for me, in the same realm of the lower ones of what I read. I'm not quite sure. I think it's fine that it's a little bit higher than Patchett, because I didn't hate it as, I mean, I did like it a little bit more perhaps. So yeah, that's just a general statement as to how I do my rankings, besides just, you know, throwing darts. It's the reading experience. How much was it enjoyable to read? Connect to how much of it, how often I think of it now, kind of the reflecting back on it. And sometimes that does change things a little bit. So the actual reading experience and then the thinking back are the 2 main categories I go with. Inserting myself here, editing me, to talk to you about, because I got the numbers confused. So the book I had just finished talking about was the Sorcerer one. what's it called? The Sorceress Comes to Call. And now we're moving on to 27, which I forgot to talk about. I jumped over it. And it's interesting because I just talked about how there were books where I kind of almost ditched them and then came back. And this is the main example of that. And it still only made it to 27, which is okay. I mean, I had issues with the book, even though I don't think it's a terrible book. And maybe 27 is kind of low, but whatever. We'll leave it there. And that is, I've given away my copy of it. What's it called? The Woman Upstairs. So the Claire Messoud novel about the woman who is strangely unhappy with her life, although she lives in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and has enough money to live there. But this is a while ago, and she seems sort of disgruntled, and she's depressed, she's lonely, and we're supposed to have compassion for her, and we do begrudgingly, sort of, although I still maintain that, as Roxane Gay says, 37 years old in Cambridge is not the end of the world. She was a little bit it was hard to sort of not see some of it as unacknowledged privilege. That being said, it was better when I decided to go through with it, and I got the whole plot and the whole kind of, there was almost like not a thriller aspect, but a sort of betrayal thing going on, which was mildly interesting. And I guess one of the main things about this woman is that she was a thwarted creative, and so she did make art, but she wasn't kind of recognized for her art making. And that kind of, I had some issues with that too, but I'm so glad I read the book. And the writing is probably better than 27 in terms of comparing it to all these other people down here in the 20s. It wasn't badly written, but I didn't like the writing. And I guess, what did I not like about the writing? I can't remember exactly. I think it had more to do with, I wasn't quite convinced with what she was trying to do with this whole setup of this disgruntled person letting herself kind of in for these issues, these things that happened to her. It just didn't quite sell me on it, even though I think I kind of got a better idea of what she was trying to do when I just sat down and read it. Because what had happened was I skimmed it through, and I'm like, oh, okay, that's what happens. And then I said, okay, I need to read it all the way through and see what the terrible thing that happens, how that sort of unfolds. And I'm glad I did it, but it still wasn't one of my most enjoyable or memorable reads of the year. So this is going to be inserted in between 28 and 26. So sorry about that. It's kind of hard when you have so many numbers, but we'll be fine. Talk to you later. On to 26, which was, not a bad book, but just not for me. And I only listened to this one, although I did buy a copy of it, and I don't know where it is. And it's the Dan Jones History of the Middle Ages, Power and Thrones, A New History of the Middle Ages. And my main reason for putting that so low is I don't do well with huge swaths of history, especially not as an audio, because I just want to stop and, look things up and get a better, deeper picture, a better understanding, slow it down. And also just as an audio, just having it go into my head as I do my chores wasn't the best way to do a whole, because don't ask me to remember. I don't remember anything. I would have to be taking a class and have a test on it. Then I might remember more. I've always been interested in the city Ravenna, because that's an interesting city because it's connected to one of the later Roman things. I mean, some things did become clear in terms of the timeline, that Islam is sort of later, or the stuff about Genghis Khan was sort of interesting. But it's very general. That's kind of where I'm at. I remember that I learned stuff, but specifically what I did learn, I have to go back. And I think I did give that also to Half Price Books. I can't find it. Anyway, so that's numbers 26. 25 was one that I didn't hate, but it's still lower down because everything else is better. And it's the other birthday book I bought myself, and it's Horrorstör by Grady Hendrix, which was fine. It was sort of, it also, the best thing about it was the quasi-IKEA setting. The story itself was like, okay, sure, it's a horror story, whatever. I mean, it was fine. I'm sorry, but these are the lower ones, so of course I'm going to be like, these are all the books. And this was another book for me, but it was fine. And I kept this one because I think it's kind of funny, and, the whole IKEA thing is a good setup. 24. That's the short story. That wasn't bad, but it was very strange, and I don't really even have a picture of it. So it's one of the first, if not the first. I had a Balzac rabbit hole, bit of rabbit holing, and his Honoré de Balzac was very prolific. You know, he was sort of an excessive person. So he also wrote a lot of books. And the comedy, human comedy, Comédie Humaine, is it's like 100, this multitudes of volumes. And so, of course, sort of obsessed with me, just like now doing 30 to 1. I wanted to start at one with and apparently one are these strange stories to do, sort of historical novels or stories. And so this one is called Exiles, or The Exile. No, it's more than one. And it's basically Dante Alighieri, fictionalized, fleeing Rome to Paris. And I'm trying to remember if he's the sort of angelic person that everyone was flocking towards, or if that's someone else. And there's this sort of religious service almost in somewhere. But the end of the tale is someone telling him that he can go back to Rome. I think that's the end of it. It was actually not bad. How would we read it? I should try and find a good copy of it. I think I read it online. Maybe I have all of the stuff online on my Kindle. That could be where I have it. And if I find a thing, I'll put it up here. So it wasn't bad, but it was sort of, it's not even a novel really. It shouldn't be on the list, but whatever. And so it's coming in at 24 for The Exiles. 23 is another book that I have, and it's from the little bunch of books that I purchased when I was in England, that second day when I was not feeling well, and I stayed home most of the day, except I ventured out to the library and got a whole bunch of tiny little thin books. And so I read my first Ginsberg, Valentino. Now, this wasn't bad, but it was strange, and sort of a strange world to sort of have a very short story about this terrible man, this terrible person in his family who sort of bosses everyone around, as I recall. He's a spoiled child. And I don't like these stories that focus on a spoiled man surrounded by fawning or at least subservient women. Valentino is the spoiled child of doting parents who have no doubt he will be a man of consequence. And another thing that was strange about this is that they went on and on about the fact that he's gorgeous and also probably closeted homosexual, and that the woman he marries is ugly. Like, they go on and on about how she's ugly, but she's well off. She's an heiress, I think. And so, of course, I kind of like have issues with that too a little bit. I mean, I know why they were doing that. And it is from the sister's point of view. It was a strange little story. That's all I have to say about it. And it was sort of, there was a coldness to it. It was interesting, and it kind of gives you this Italian thing, the sense, sort of a glimpse into a different society. And it takes place sometime in the 20th century, I want to say. And I should have read the introduction. That probably would have pulled me through a little bit. Yeah, it was published in 1957. So, so not really yet, people not very liberated yet. And so it was interesting. And I think I need to come back to Ginsberg with something else. But so that came in at number, it's not the worst. We're getting into sort of the middle field here. This is 23. Because, see, most of the stuff I read because I want to read them and because I think they'll be great. I'm not going to spend my time reading things that I won't think are great. And so then I guess what happens is, there's levels of greatness. That was 23. And 22, another one that's on the Kindle. No, Audible. I listened to this on Audible and I don't have a copy of it. It's an Anthony Trollope, shortest. It's like almost a novella as opposed to a book. And it was called Dr. Wardle's School. It was fine. It was not my favorite Trollope, of course. And it was sort of a strange story about this person that has a school. And then what happened was some people, he gets these people to come work for him, and they have an American connection, and or somehow it has to do with reputations and how something happens to the person's reputation and they have to sort of go, it involves, I'm sorry, being vague, but it involves going to America. It's sort of an American novel, and the narrator was a little bit, it's a little bit weird when the Trollope people have to start pretending they have an American accent. So the reading was a little bit jarring for that reason. Something to do with a marriage or a wife. It's something to do with it. There was an evildoer. There was that kind of plot, and they had to sort of reestablish their reputation. And I think it's the person who works for Wardle and who they had sort of taken in that this happened to. Something happened to the reputation of the person in the school. But it all works out at the end because it's a trollop, and it came in at number 22 for me. Number 21. So you have these two lists here. Here's 21. Oh, yes. I think it's a good place for it. It's sort of good, but not great. The first book I read of the year, Übermenschen, so about people, but also kind of playing on Nietzsche and super people. Julie Tse's novel about moving out of Berlin during COVID to live in this sort of rural area where she has to make do with right-wingish type people who are from the area. And it's quite well done. It was sort of enjoyable. Sorry, the lighting's really not that great on this gray day. But in hindsight, it was sort of, it's almost meant to please, meant to be sort of soothing. And I don't know why I don't like that. The writing wasn't bad, though. And she does a good job of, it's almost like funny. It's humorous and sort of humanizing in that sense. And so it was quite good, but it just was a little bit too pat, perhaps, in the end. Like, oh, I could see this as a TV show as well, kind of like it would all work out in the end kind of thing. And quite well done. So that's number 21. Now we're going to 20. Oh, yes, another one that a lot of people will probably put higher, but for me it's just a 20 because it's like, it's good. It didn't wow me that much. I'm trying to get the light a little bit more on me. And that's A Month in the Country. It was fine. It was fine. It was sad about the First World War and him working on the picture. I read this as part of the Shorty September, and maybe I wasn't really giving myself over to it enough. But I think it's just, it's a fine work. It's not, up there for me. I'm not sure why it didn't get higher. Maybe just because of everything else. I think maybe because I've heard so many people say they love it, and I'm sort of contrarian in that sense. If other people all love it, I have a tendency to not love things as much. I don't know why. But, 20 is not bad. It could be worse, right? Yeah, this came in at number 20 for me. I'm looking at my list. Yeah, that's right, 20. 19, which in a way I kind of want to put this one higher, but, here we go with everything else pushes it lower. And that's the first Maigret I ever read, also from the Shorty September. I think part of it is me and short books don't get along. As you can see, all these ones that are lower down are the short ones. Well, most of them. Actually, yeah. And so the Maigret, it was fine. It was good. It was a little bit better. I enjoyed it more than the ones behind it, but not as much as the ones ahead of it. And I think I would like to read more similar. I don't know. I'm not sure. Maybe. I'm also not a mystery person really that much. Maybe as an Audible, not just reading it. I think an Audible might be good. And then kind of look at it. That might be better. That was 19. Moving on into 18. Now we're coming into somewhat of the heavy hitters here. Now 18 was a weird one. I'm kind of surprised it's only at 18, but I guess that's right. Yeah, I'm looking at the right thing. Père Goriot by Balzac, the actual shortish novel that I read of his. I actually, first of all, I didn't like it, but then I realized I did kind of like it because it stayed with me so much. Even though it's so strange in how his daughters are so cold and he's so poor and everyone is so mean and you don't quite know why, and they're greedy. The Balzacian universe is just one that is strange to me. I need to read more Balzac, perhaps. And one of my projects is to get better at reading French. And it's going to take a while before I can read Balzac. I understand that, but we'll work our ways up. But I did think about it a lot. This is one where the reading experience pushed it down, but then the fact that I kept thinking about it so much and how interesting it was and how some of the scenes are so memorable. Like, interesting work. Very interesting. And so there's 2 Balzacs already. And tell me if you've read any Balzac, if you can recommend any. I know there's at least one booktuber who really loves Balzac. one of the ones that I watched, Brian from Bookish. That's number, where are we at? That was number 18. And now we're going into 17. Where's 17? Here it is. Oh yeah, this would be higher. Well, this would be higher, except it's not. My beloved Zola. I love Zola. And I really like this. This is definitely kind of, why is it at 17? Just because of everything else. Because I like the other things better. It was strange and it doesn't fit in. I mean, it does fit because time-wise it fits. I'm reading the Macrois, Rougon-Macrois series in a different order, in the order of chronology as opposed to publication. And this one's a kind of detour because it's about this one separate little story about this young girl who becomes infatuated with a young man. And it's very over the top and ornate, sort of overwritten, but with this idea, I don't know what he was going for here, but it's sort of different from the other Zola novels. This girl is intensely passionate and given to rage and disobedience. She's sort of like an otherworldly character, as I recall. She creates a dream world all of her own, peopled with spirits. As part of her dream vision, she kind of plays on who she'll get married to. And in a certain sense, it sort of happens. Like her dream, she doesn't manifest it. But there's also kind of another side to it. That I think that's kind of what he's getting at, is that you can't only live in the dream. Like, you have to sort of be realistic. Here's another one where I would like to read the introduction, so I might keep these out and read the introduction to them. But I love Zola. I really like him. I just feel so much more in tune with his writing than Balzac. So yeah, I love my Balzac. I love my Zola, and we'll continue with the series. That was number 17. Moving on into 16, almost halfway there, and that is a Trollope. The first, one of my first early reads of the year. I listened to it and I read along with it, but I basically listened to it, and then now we're getting into the fact that because I listened to it, the memory of it is a little vague. But this is the one where one of the characters from the Palliser series takes center stage, and he's almost like he's too much of a bland character to hold a novel, to hang a whole novel on, even though he is the prime minister. And that's part of the irony of the whole novel, is that he gets to the top of the mountain and he's like, I don't like it here, because it's just not his thing. And it's also about the relationship to his wife, and then there's of course an evil person in here too. And I liked it. I didn't like it as much as some other ones. I really, in general, I think I have to say I like the Barsages novels better than Palliser. I know a lot of people are the other way around, because these are more page-turnery. Some of them are, like Eustace Diamonds was, certainly. And this is still good. I haven't read a standalone that I like better than either of the series yet. I've only read a couple. I know there are many others. But, and the problem I'm having with the final one of the Palliser is, the problem is that this is the final installment, chunky one, called The Duke's Children, and it's all about his kids, so it's like further on in time. And the problem is that this is a recaptured version. He cut a lot. This is a reconstructed text. Trollope cut a lot from the original one to get it out, and that's the audio one. So I'm going to actually have to read this with my eyes, and I will do that, but it will take me a amount of time, and I think I might just have it on the go while I read other things. He's sort of soothing to read because it's pretty much you're going ahead. It's not very experimental or anything. It's just trolloping, and so I might just have to buckle down and do that. And there's no point in listening to it because it'll be confusing, because it will have stuff that'll be in here that won't be on there, and that's not good for me. So I'll just read this at some point. That's kind of why it's taking longer. When I can listen to them, they go faster for me, because they are kind of long and I'm slow. So that's that. That's number 16, and now we're getting to the halfway mark, 15. So these were all sort of good reads, and that's going to be the biography of the Brothers Grimm. that I read over the summer, and it was a little bit underwhelming. I thought it would be more like fascinating, but in reading it, I found out, because I always thought, oh, I really need to read a cover-to-cover biography. I found out that I do actually know quite a lot about them, and there's nothing that I missed. I mean, he gives nuance to certain aspects of their how they fit in with romanticism and how they fit in with just folklore, what they were. And the thing is, they were their own thing. They weren't really, they didn't fit in anywhere, and that's kind of why they are special in a certain sense. And that was all confirmed in reading this quite good, but not sort of wow, all these new insights into the Brothers Grimm's. Like, no, they were what they were. They were what they were, which were interesting, smart men who stood up for what they believed in, and were interested in the customs and laws. They were interested in buying books and excerpting books and reading books and writing about what they had read. That's what they were. They were not writers. They're not creatives in that sense, but they were creatives in a different sense, I guess you could say. And so, yeah, I think I am going to stop and make this part 1, because it's just going to get too long. And the 14 through 1 video will come very shortly. And thank you all for watching. Give me your thoughts, and I'll be back soon. Bye.